إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما اعلموا عباد الله أن أحسن الكلام كلام الله تبارك وتعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد عباد الله my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, what positive change have you brought with you to this country when you were raised here, when you grew up over here, or when you came and you traveled to this place? What positive change have you brought to this place? You see, when it comes to the Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them with a message, with a risala. You cannot use your cell phone during the khutbah. You need to turn it off. So what message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as an ummah? That message is very simple. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas. You are the best nation ever produced to mankind. The best nation ever produced to mankind. For what reason? تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. Because you promote and you enjoin good and you forbid evil. That means you bring change. You bring change. And that change is positive change. This quality of the ummah was mentioned prior even to saying وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ, and you believe in Allah. Because when it comes to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many can claim that. It's easy to as a lip service to claim it. But how many of those who claim so will really have the evidence to prove it? They have the records to prove it. And that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ, that you promote and you enjoy good and you forbid evil. When it comes to bring positive change, regardless how much you try to justify what you do, as a Muslim living in this society, at the end of the day, people will ask you, what contribution have you made to the culture over here? People, they ask about culture, sometimes to the basic culture, even in food. They want to see, what contribution have you made to the culture over here? In terms of ingenuity, ideas, inventions, what have we brought with you? That's what people want to know about the Muslims. We're very good at promoting Islam as a da'wah and as a deen, but as a way of life as well, that is something still we're working on. I remember many years ago, I was given the opportunity right after September 11th, perhaps 2002, 2003. I was given the opportunity to enter a church. The pastor called me and he said, I want you to come and educate our people. People, they want to know what's going on, who the Muslims are, what is happening in the world. So he gave me the opportunity as an imam to go and speak for 3 Sundays, 3 weeks, subhanAllah. Every Sunday after they're done from their services, he will give me the platform and I will talk for about 2 hours to his congregation. I did a fancy, beautiful PowerPoint presentation. And I went there and I spoke for 3 weeks about Islam and Muslims. What Islam is, Arkan al-Islam, Arkan al-Iman, who the Muslims are, all the stuff and so on. SubhanAllah, when I asked for feedback, one of the first questions, which was really interesting, but for someone new in the country at that time, he asked me, they asked me, the people, they said, this is all beautiful. Which means, wow, this is interesting, this is beautiful, we share so many values together. But what did the Muslims do? What contribution do they have in the American culture? He said, we know that there are a lot of minorities in the country, and many of them, they have left legacy in the media. They have legacy in journalism, legacy in inventions, in medicine, hospitals, this and that and so on. But what did you do as Muslims, as a minority, as a Muslim? What did you do in the country? I honestly didn't have the answer. I didn't really have the answer. And I looked and I asked those who've been in the country for 30 years, 40, 50 years before me. I was only for 3 years at that time. So what did you guys do? People, they asked me this question. And subhanAllah, the exact same question was asked to me about 7 years later in another masjid. I came to that masjid as a new imam. And just for 14 days in that community. After doing another presentation, the congregation, they asked, very simple question. Says, this is all beautiful. But what did your community, talking about the masjid right now, the local community, not a big community as the Muslims in America, but the local community, what did you guys do to the city, to the local city where you live? What was your contribution? Have you left any legacy? Have you participated in anything? What is the record of your civic engagement in the city? Well, I didn't have an answer either. I'd only been 14 days in that area. So that I gave my excuse. I said, well, you know, I'm new in this area. I've been only here for 14 days serving in this community. So I really don't know. But if you ask the administration, I'm sure they have records. And when the presentation was over, I went to the administration office myself. I said, what did you guys do? Show me your records. Your civic engagement in the city. You've been here for many years. What did you do? What do the people, the neighbors around you, what do they know about you? Unfortunately, when it comes to this, many Muslim communities, small masajid, small communities, they don't have that record of civic engagement and bringing positive change to their society. If you don't grow, that's a natural law. If you don't grow, then you're dead. If you don't grow, you're dead. That's why this member every Friday you come in the same position, because it doesn't grow. And if you don't grow spiritually, you're dying. If you don't grow in terms of knowledge, your knowledge dies. If you don't grow in skills, your skills will die. If you don't improve, then eventually you will die. And that is the meaning of positive change. What positive change are you bringing with you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment will be asking you 5 simple questions. You're not going to be removed from facing Allah Azza wa Jalla, your Creator, until you answer these 5 questions. 2 of these questions are about your age. وَعَنْ عُمُرِي, your age, your lifetime, the entire lifetime, your life. You spent 60 years on earth. You spent 25 years, 20 years, 15 years. What did you do during your lifetime on earth? What did you do? Do you have the answer for this? And not just that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask about very particular age group. That time window in your life, when you were young and youthful. وَعَنْ شَبَابِهِ, when you were youth, when you were young, what did you do? See, because when we think of someone who's young, whenever I think of someone who's young, let's take 16 years old, even 20, 21 years old. When you think of someone like that, what is the first image that comes to our mind? Immaturity. The first thing that comes to our mind is immaturity, which means you don't expect much from them. You don't really expect much from them. However, when you look in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, those whom we call children, juveniles, that age, 16, 17, 15 years old, they were leaders. They were leaders for the Ummah. And they are leaders until the Day of Judgment. And I would like to share with you some of these examples. Being youth, and I want to make sure that you guys all understand, regardless of your age, you are considered youth in that sense, that you need to bring positive change. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he became prophet when he was 40. I know many people, they start thinking of retirement at 40 years old. And that's when the age, when he was ready to start his career, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at 40 years old. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was preparing himself for that time. Allah was preparing him for that. So when he becomes 40, that's when he starts giving back. That's when he starts now changing and improving and working hard to leave legacy. Not to retire and start winding down and just go and enjoy your time in what you call back home. That's not the time for this. This is the time to bring that positive change. And for those who are young, that's when you're energetic. That's when you need to bring that positive change. Not just to yourself on personal level, even on the community level. And here are some examples. From the Quran, Yusuf alayhi salam. You know, Yusuf alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tried him at a very young age. Yusuf was a boy. When his brother, they took him. And they did what they did to him. We all know they threw him in the well. They were hoping that someone is going to come and pick him up and he will go somewhere else, and then eventually their father is going to forget about him, and they will have the whole, environment and life for them. Yusuf alayhi salam was young, and he was taken to Egypt. Spending a few years over there in slavery, even though it was a quality kind of slavery because he was in the house of one of these ministers of the king. Still though, he wasn't free to do whatever he wanted to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Yusuf alayhi salam, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. When he reached أشده, the term أشد, آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We gave him hukum and ilm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says when he reached that age of strength, shaheed, which means you become now strong. That means when you turn, immediately you turn the age of puberty. When you become 13, 14 years old, I'm speaking to those who are already 15, 16 years old. Islamically and legally, you are now considered young adult. Meaning you are an adult. I know that the culture here forces you to think like a juvenile or a child. Because as long as you're still not 18, you can do whatever you want to do and you can get away with it. But Islamically, you can't do that. That's when Allah says about him, بَلَغَ أَشُدَّ. And he said the same thing about Musa alayhi salam. And the same thing about Dawood alayhi salam. He mentioned that about Ibrahim alayhi salam. They reach ashud, which means that age they become shareed strong. أَيْتَنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. We gave him two things, hukum and ilm, knowledge and wisdom. This is the knowledge and the wisdom. You might have the knowledge, but these kids, they don't have good judgment. They're very smart, they're very clever, they're straight A's in school, but they don't have good judgment. They don't have that wisdom, that hukmah. And that's what Allah says about Yusuf alayhi salam, that they had that wisdom. They did the right thing, they were able to do these things. As an example from the life of Yusuf alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tried him of going to jail, he chose that, he made that decision. قال رب السجن وحب إلي مما يدعون إليه. Ya Rabb, they invited me to do haram. I can't do that. I'd rather go to jail than obey them on doing that haram thing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that easy for him. Made easy for him that they stopped chasing him and he was sent to jail. Now when Yusuf alayhi salam was in prison, when he was in jail, one of the interesting stories about him being in jail, two young men came to him. Random guys. They don't know who that man was. They don't know who was that. He was just a young man, but when they spoke to him, he said, we need your help. Can you please give us interpretation to these dreams? We're seeing dreams here. Inna naraka, and that's the key point here. They said about him, Inna naraka min al-muhsinin. We look at you, we've been watching you. We've been watching you. And we think that you are one of those who do excellence. In terms of good deeds, you're such an amazing person. That's what they meant. They said, you're like an awesome person. You're an amazing person. And we want your help. Yusuf didn't speak with them. He didn't talk. He didn't preach in prison. He was just acting. He was just acting the way he's supposed to be acting. At that age, this is unique when you see someone 15, 16 years old, and these kids, they act mature. Definitely it's impressive. Absolutely impressive. And that's why they were impressed. So, Inna narakum min muhsin. He seems to be, mashallah, awesome guy. And then before he gave them the answer to their dreams, he invited them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bring them positive change, even in the most, I would say, non-conventional situation, circumstance. Being in jail. What change can they make anyway? What's going to happen to them? What can they do to the society when they're in jail? Nothing much. But he had a vision. One of them was the reason to save his life afterwards. Even though in a circumstance like being in prison, you might think, what change? What am I going to do anyway? How is this going to affect anyway? Subhanallah. Being in prison, he just acted according to his manners and akhlaq, and he brought that positive change. One, on an individual level, this person who was killed, who was executed afterwards, but he brought positive change to his personal life, believing in Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the other one, he told him, you're going to go out and you're going to serve the king, so don't forget about me. Because of him, change happened to the entire world after that. Yusuf came out. And when he came out and he met the king says, wish, give me whatever you wish, I'll give it to you. He says, I trust you, I believe in you, definitely you are a man who's trustworthy, whatever you ask for, I'll give it to you. And what did Yusuf alayhi salam say? I know we've been trained as Muslims. Whenever an opportunity arises like this, we've been taught to say, no, astaghfirullah, I cannot do that. You humble yourself. You just say, no, I should not be asking for this. Yusuf alayhi salam, he saw an opportunity. This man is telling him, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. What did he say? قَالَ اجْعَلْنِي عَلَى خَزَائِنِ الْأَرْضِ. You know, I want you, if you can, I want you to make me the treasurer of the land. The treasurer of Egypt. Egypt back then was the greatest civilization. People from around the entire globe, they came to Egypt for treasures and for goods and for food and for everything. So he said, I want to be the treasurer. I want to take care of this for you. And he gave him two qualities. Inni hafidun alim. Hafidun alim is I have the knowledge for this and I have the skills. I can take care of it very well. So if you have the knowledge and you have the skills and you can bring positive change, take it. Go for it. Many of our masajid, we don't lack resources, wallah. We do have the financial resources. We have the human resources. But unfortunately, we lack these opportunities. Some masajid don't open the opportunities, and other people don't come and take the opportunity. If you know that you can do something, come and volunteer your time. Bring positive change. Don't wait for some people to tell you, listen, what can you do to us or for us? We want you to come and say, listen, this is my skill, and this is how much time I can give you. Let me know what you need me to do. And in this case, you bring positive change. Again, don't say what change is going to happen. What can I do? Even the most non-conventional circumstances, wallahi, you can make change. If not today, will be on the long term, like Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf alayhi salam is one example for what we call today civic engagement. It's a civic engagement opportunity. He became in a public position, public leadership. He took this opportunity and he brought amazing change. And this is not the time to talk about the change he brought, alayhi salatu wasalam, just to give an example for the positive change in civic engagement. What are opportunities for you that you can make in your community and outside the community? Look for these opportunities. Number two, another example, Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, of course we all know that his mother, when she got scared, she left him as a baby and she threw him into the water, and the water basically, the crowd took him all the way to the house of the Pharaoh. And she freaked out. But Allah took care of Musa for her. Musa alayhi salam grew up in the house of the Pharaoh, or the Pharaoh. And you know, back then, the children of the leaders, they used to be on the front lines. They always, they have the greatest skills in terms of military, muscles, this and that, everything. All the opportunities, intellectual, physical, were given to them. So Musa was very strong. How did he use his skill? How did he exactly utilize that? Allah mentioned that in the Quran, that Musa was known to be from Bani Israel. Even in the house of the Pharaoh, he was known to be Bani Israel, because who's going to throw his child into the water other than Israelis at that time? So they knew who he was. And that's why the people, the Israelis in Egypt, every time they're in trouble, they call Musa. Yeah, Musa, help me out here, please. Musa was standing for social justice. That's an example for standing for social justice. So he comes to help this man. He pushed the Egyptian, he killed him. I'm not saying you to go and kill people. But we say that stand for social justice, like Musa did, alayhi salam. Of course, as a human being, he got scared. He ran away. But later on, when he matured, he came back to face the reality of life. So I'm going to go back to Egypt. Let's see what happens. On the way back, to bring change, Allah gave him the opportunity of the greatest change to the ummah, to the world. He made him a messenger and a prophet. And he gave him miracles to prove that he can bring change. And he did, alayhi salatu wassalam. Musa alayhi salam was the example for standing for social justice. Standing for social justice is not only for Muslims, ya Jama'ah. That's the problem with the Muslims in America. Whenever there's a crisis in a Muslim country, or something happening against a Muslim brother or sister in the society, they stand up for their rights. What about the other people? What are other people? When we see that there is a need to stand for justice, you should be the first person to be there. We rally for good cause, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. But sometimes, honestly, it's the only cause. Sometimes it's the only cause. And when there is more than that, you need to expand your social involvement as well and civic engagement. Number three, the third example from the Quran. The third example from the Quran is the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam was an intelligent young man. He didn't like what his people were worshiping. Intellectually, that doesn't make any sense. He just didn't like it. And because of that, he tried to improvise ideas and talent and skills, tried to debate with his people. So that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about him, debating with them in regard to the sun, the planets, and the moon. Are these gods? They cannot be gods because they disappeared. They just cannot be God. How do you worship these things? In another example, he was very vocal. He was very vocal about this. He was very critical, which means public speaking, intellectual debates. That was his contribution, alayhi salatu wasalam, at that time of his young life. So he was speaking publicly. So that when one day when his people went for their festivity, they came back again to the temple, what did they find in there? All their idols and statues, they were destroyed. And the axe was put on the shoulder of the biggest one. So when they looked and they were surprised, what happened? What did they say? قَالُوا مَنْ فَعَلَ هَذَا بِآلِهَتِنَا. Look how ridiculous with the questions, subhanAllah. Says, who did this to our gods? Who did this to our gods? And what did they say? What's the answer? The Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that they themselves remember. قَالُوا سَمِعْنَا فَتًى يَذْكُرُهُمْ يُقَالُ لَهُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ. You know, we heard a young man used to talk about him a lot. His name was Ibrahim. Which means Ibrahim was known to be vocal. Today you don't have to speak much. You can just type it. You can blog about it. You can just send to social media. You can do a lot of change. Positive change by writing and being vocal. That's Ibrahim alayhi salam. قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. We heard about a young man who kept talking about him. His name was Ibrahim. He said, bring him. Bring him in. They brought Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then they asked him, قالوا أنت أفعلت هذا بآلهتنا يا إبراهيم. Did you do that for our God? Is this your work? What did he say? He said, I didn't do that. Look at him. He's holding the axe on his shoulder. He's the one who did it. They told him, you know that they don't speak. And Ibrahim said, that's the point. That's exactly the point. How can you worship something that doesn't even speak, cannot even defend itself? Ibrahim alayhi salam was very talented. He had this argument and had this debate with his people, with his own father, and subhanAllah made of him an entire generation. Ummah. Inna Ibrahim kana ummah. Ibrahim, he represents the entire generation. Those who are looking for positive change. On an intellectual level, being vocal, and engage in this civil argument and dialogue. And the fourth example that I would like to mention in the Quran here, the example that we always repeat perhaps on Friday. The young men who tried to bring positive change to their own people, their own society and community. 7, 8, 6, Allahu Alam, we don't know how many they were. But we know they were just a group of young men. They tried collectively to do that together. They worked on their community, but when they found that there is no hope, and they felt that it's going to be dangerous for them to stay any longer, they left. On the way out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a miracle out of them. They slept for over 300 years. For 300 years. And then when they came out from that long sleep, they found that the whole world was changed. The positive change we were hoping for. And subhanAllah, people, they for 300 years, over 300 years, they remembered them and they were talking about it. Because when they came out, people, they said, awesome, you are the people. You are those people that disappeared over 300 years ago. See the change, how far can it go? You don't have to witness that change. I know many people, they would like to do things they don't want to see with their own eyes. If I can't see the change in my own eyes, in my time, I'm not going to do anything. You don't have to see that change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it. Your part is just to do it, to speak about it, get involved, and bring that positive change. Results will remain in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the right time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring that result out. Your reward will be kept and safe with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the actual change might not happen during your lifetime. You're only responsible to make sure that you do your part and bring positive change. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا ما بعد. What is so unique about this Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is that regardless of the level of Iman, regardless of the level of Iman of some Muslims, they're still very passionate about their deen. And they always take opportunities to bring positive change to many people. And I have two examples. One I know personally, I personally know a person, back in the 1970s. That person became Muslim, his river became Muslim. SubhanAllah, so ironic. Just like in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, in the most non-conventional circumstances. He became Muslim because he was given da'wah in the bar. And I'm not saying he to go and do da'wah over there. But I'm saying he got the opportunity by another Muslim was there drinking. And they became friends. That Muslim who was drinking invited him to Islam. SubhanAllah, how ironic that is. You're drinking, you're violating what you believe to be halal and haram over here. But still he was passionate about Tawheed. That Allah is one. He said, I know I'm doing wrong. And it's wrong, it's not. But I would never worship none other than Allah Azza wa Jalla. So even in circumstances like these, people can bring positive change, subhanAllah. Again, don't take me wrong, don't go and make da'wah over there. But definitely, even in the most non-conventional circumstance, you can bring change. This individual himself, subhanAllah, this individual was the source and the reason for at least 100 members of his family to become Muslim afterwards. One person from the 1970s until today. You can make that change happen. That's one example. The other example, one of the shuyukh, he said, he had a conversation with a missionary. And that missionary, he told him, he was very impressed with the Muslims. Very impressed with the Muslims. He says, you know what, I've been traveling to Muslim countries almost everywhere he goes. He says, what is so unique about Muslims, it seems that every single Muslim is a missionary. He says, how come? Because everywhere we go like tourists, and we go everywhere, they travel in different countries, even the most non-practicing Muslim, like in this example, when they had a dialogue or conversation with them, just regular conversation, they immediately tell them, why don't you become a Muslim? It's just a very simple question. So they just throw that question. It's not like they're going to force you to become Muslim. They just say, why don't you become Muslim? You look so good, mashallah. You can be Muslim. What? They just oversimplify things. But subhanAllah, these questions brought so many people to Islam. And I had one of them was my classmate. Just because of a simple question like that. Someone asked me, says, why are you going to become Muslim? Says it was just a casual question, but it brought positive change to his life. I'm sending this message to all of you over here. To the brothers and the sisters. To the young ones, those who think that they're still children. You're 16, 17 years old, you think yourself a child because you're a Jabra. You just think that you can't do anything, you can't change anything. You're just waiting until you become 18. For what? Many people, they wait to become 18 so they can have their first cigarettes. They can go and violate the first haram in their life. They're just waiting for that moment, subhanAllah. Is that how you declare you're becoming an adult? Well, the good news for you is that you're already an adult since you have your first position in life to become adult and mature. When you reach the age of puberty, that's when you became adult before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So stop wasting your time and your energy and bring positive change to your personal life and then to everybody around you, Muslims and non-Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. In order to be able to change from around you, you need to start changing from inside. And don't wait to be 100% perfect, because you will never be. Never expect yourself to be first perfect so you can start making positive change. No, don't do that. Don't wait. Start from now. Not even from today. I'm saying start from now. Because as you sit right now, you need to change your attitude towards Khutbah al-Jummah, towards Salat al-Jummah, towards the benefit that you're getting from this Salah that you're going to be praying in a few seconds right now. Make that positive change start from inside. And Allah will bring you, inshallah, to that positive change outside from surrounding from around you. And finally, Hadith al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's a narration, a report, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, كُونُوا مَفَاتِيحَ لِلْخَيْرِ مَغَالِيقَ لِلشَّرِّ. If you can just apply this hadith to your life as your key to positive change. كُونُوا مَفَاتِيحَ لِلْخَيْرِ. Being keys for goodness and locks against all evil. If you can take this as your motto, as your slogan for your life, you become a key for all kind of goodness. Any opportunity of khair and goodness, just do it. And stay a lock. Just keep doors closed against every evil. If you can be that person to block that evil from taking place or happening, then they take that opportunity and bring positive change. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم آت نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها. عباد الله إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. وارض اللهم عن الخلفاء الراشدين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين.